Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor to be here in such distinguished forum. Thank you to all the justices, the jurists, the academics, the experts, the NGOs, the volunteers, and all those who lead the IJL. I can say that part of the greatness of the organization is the human beings that lead it. I have a special close relationship as a friend of Mayor Linzen, but I can also add to the fact that Mayor, apart from his great energies, was a stagiaire, was the legal assistant of my late father, Herzog, who later became the president of the State of Israel. And I knew from childhood that Mayor is a very brilliant man, so Batzlacha Mayor to you and to your team. You follow in the footsteps of your great predecessors. Especially, of course, I thank Irit and Alex, all great jurists, and especially I mentioned, like some of you have mentioned, the late Adassa Benito, who was not only a great jurist, but I met Adassa Benito when she came to join my late father's delegation in the famous battle protecting Zionism, in the infamous resolution equating Zionism with racism back in 1975. Adassa was a very strong element in that delegation. Since then, she has been awarded the Chaim Herzog Lifetime Achievement Award, such as Justice Eliakim Rubinstein, and it is only a tribute to us all that we mention her great deeds. I also want to pay tribute to the special hosts of this wonderful space, the Jewish People's Museum. It's a museum, it's called in Hebrew Beit HaTfutzot. It tells the story of the Jewish people throughout the life of communities, and I urge you and encourage you to be part and visit this museum. It was led in recent years in a remarkable way by my good friend, our good friend, Irena Nevzlin. Thank you, Irena, for the great work you're doing. And I commend you for inaugurating the new wing that has just been installed, and you can see it all for yourself. So we are at the forefront of combating one of the worst evils of humankind. And I must say that since World War II, this is the worst period of dealing with anti-Semitism in modern times. We see an increase, a major increase in anti-Semitism all throughout the world. We see a 70% increase in France. We see 60% increase in Germany. We see the political system in Britain ridden with anti-Semitism, at least with one of its main pillars, the Labour Party in Britain, where if you're Jewish, you're stricken most of the times out of the party. You see members of parliament of the Jewish faith quitting the party. You see a rise of anti-Semitism in Latin America. And you see anti-Semitic attacks and swastikas on campuses all over North America. And you see every day an attack on Jewish institutions. Last week I visited, as part of my position, the famous first synagogue in Northern America, which is the Jewish synagogue, the Touro synagogue in Rhode Island, in Newport, Rhode Island. And I saw the declaration of President George Washington as he went to the synagogue and gave a decree of the equality and liberties of Jews. And I thought to myself, Jews were never hurt for being Jewish in that land, except in our shift this year. 12 Jews being murdered in synagogues for simply being Jewish, which exemplifies more than anything else the enormous rise of anti-Semitism in our times, and the fact that anti-Semitism does not skip any nation around the globe. And that calls for unified actions of all elements that deal with fighting anti-Semitism. All organizations, all NGOs, United Nations, which have actually published an incredible report on anti-Semitism, probably a lot with the assistance of IJL, the European Union, governments, etc. And the battle has to be dealt with in three major tiers. First tier is defense, making sure that Jews are protected. Meaning, first of all, physical protection, unfortunately. Yes, unfortunately, mothers and fathers around the world are asking me when I visit communities, you mean we have to warn our kids? You have to be more on alert. That's the answer. So the Jewish Agency has established, following the horrific assassination of children in the Toulouse Jewish School in 2012, a foundation which supports communities all over the world, and together with many other institutions, we are protecting Jewish communities all over the world. We've assisted 600 institutions. And when the assassin in Halle, broadcasting live, I hate all the Jews, they must die, and the Holocaust didn't exist, tried to break into the synagogue in Yom Kippur, he couldn't break because simply we have installed locks and cameras who saved 100 Jewish lives. So first and foremost is protection, and mostly dealing with police forces and ministries of justice to make sure the Jewish institutions are protected. Because there was a clear question, how come there was no police in Yom Kippur in Halle? So that is one tier. The second tier, which has to do with jurists such as yourself, is combating the legal adjudication and legislation frontier big time, which means to implement and adjudicate and legislate the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of anti-Semitism, which was accepted by the European Union, which was accepted by the German Parliament, which was accepted by the United States and other governments, because it's wide enough, and it, of course, makes clear that to undermine the legitimacy of the Jewish national homeland is as anti-Semitism as any other anti-Semitism. And this is a major battle all throughout the international community, and I call upon the IJL to be at the forefront of this. But more importantly, is going to court and suing and fighting on the right of Jews to live in peace and tranquility with full security anywhere around the globe. There is a problem now on US campuses. I can tell you of an event because we have, with the Jewish Agency, fellows on all over the world in campuses. Israelis who are trained and go to campuses to fight BDS and anti-Semitism. We see attacks every day. And I will tell you of a story that occurred a few weeks ago in Princeton, the campus where Albert Einstein dwelled, where there was a gathering of hundreds of human beings who claimed that the Jews are slave traders, and when our fellow walked in and said, I want to present a case, he was kicked out, and they told him, you're a capo from a concentration camp. And that is what we are faced with in various places around the globe. That's where it takes legal action, with no ifs and buts, to employ the rules of law to defend the Jewish people. And thirdly, it has to do with education. I know it's not necessarily an issue for jurists, but education is a must, because the remembrance of the Holocaust is fading away, because the lessons of the Holocaust are fading away, because social networks are brainwashing people's minds, and therefore the hate from the extreme right and the extreme left, together with classic Islamic hate and classic anti-Semitism, is the worst cocktail, where it starts with Jews but will not end with Jews. So that is why this is a call of the battle of the era, and I am sure that together with joint forces all throughout the world, we can overcome it. I commend the International Association of Jewish Jurists and Lawyers for taking action, and we are ready to further and strengthen our cooperation. I wish you a successful conference and successful deliberation. Thank you very much.